My husband left me for a woman with a penthouse and a Mercedes, thinking I was just a broke nobody. He had no idea the woman he was walking out on secretly owned 3 companies, made 7 figures, and had been funding his entire lifestyle. He told me I was holding him back, that I lacked vision, that he was embarrassed to bring me around his colleagues. He said, "You'll never be anything, Naomi. You were lucky to have me." What he didn't know was, while he was chasing someone he thought was better, he was throwing away everything he claimed to want. I never showed my wealth, not because I had to, because I chose to. And if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or made to feel like you weren't enough, stay with me. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about becoming everything they thought you couldn't be. I woke up every morning at 6:15, made coffee in the same chipped mug I'd used for years, folded laundry on the couch, packed my husband's lunch. Then I'd walk 5 blocks to the nonprofit where I worked. We helped women in crisis, domestic violence, job loss, eviction. I earned just enough to get by, or at least that's what everyone thought. At home, I clipped grocery coupons, waited for double discount days. Derek said I was smart with money, said he liked that I didn't need much. Our apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, no view, but I lit candles every night. I made that space feel like a home. I wore the same cardigan 3 times a week, not because I couldn't afford more, because it reminded me where I came from. I didn't just play the role, I lived it, every single day. My mother used to clean houses in neighborhoods we weren't welcome to live in. She'd come home smelling like bleach and lavender, fingers cracked from chemicals. Some families left her tips, most didn't. One woman once told her, "You clean like someone who's educated." That stuck with me, the way she said it, like it was a surprise. I was 8 when I first saw her cry in silence, scrubbing floors for people who wouldn't meet her eyes. We didn't talk about racism. We lived inside it. It showed up in closed doors, fake smiles, and the way they'd lock their purse when she walked by. She taught me not to expect fairness. She said, "If you want to be seen, you'll have to shine twice as hard and stay twice as quiet." I live simple, not because I lack, but because I know where silence once kept us safe. I met Derek in college. He was funny, ambitious, always talking about his big plans. We shared textbooks, ate ramen, took long walks after class. He thought I was just another broke student with big dreams and a part-time job at the campus help desk. He didn't know I was running a startup out of my dorm room, didn't know I'd already closed my first angel investment. While he was stressing over finals, I was negotiating licensing deals between lectures. I never told him, not because I didn't trust him, but because I wanted one person to love me for who I was, not what I was building. He once said, "You're the first woman I've met who doesn't try to impress anyone." I smiled, said nothing. Sometimes the best way to be seen is to hide in plain sight. 6 months after graduation, I sold my company for just under $8 million. A week later, I turned down an invitation to speak at TEDx. Derek had just landed his first real job. We were apartment hunting, planning our future. He said, "This is our fresh start. Let's build it together, from the ground up." I wanted to show him we were equals, that I didn't need a stage to feel worthy. So I stayed quiet. Let him lead. Let him believe he was the ambitious one. I built our life on his terms, cooked dinner, paid bills from an account he didn't know existed, and smiled every time he said, "I'm the provider." One day, I got an email from a Forbes editor. Derek saw it and laughed. "What would they want with you?" I deleted it. I gave up a spotlight so he could feel tall standing next to me. We had our little rituals. Sunday nights were for cheap wine and instant noodles. We'd sit on the floor, legs crossed, eating from chipped bowls like kids. He'd tell me about his dreams, a marketing firm, a house with a yard, maybe even a dog. I'd listen, nod, and laugh when he got carried away describing the barbecue grill he'd one day buy. There was something sweet in the simplicity. No fancy dinners, no pressure to impress, just 2 people building a life out of nothing. At night, we'd lie in bed, holding hands in the dark. He once whispered, "Naomi, I know we don't have much, but with you, I feel rich." And I believed him. I thought that kind of love was rare. I thought it was enough. Turns out, I was the only one who meant what they said. When Derek got promoted, something in him shifted. He started coming home later, talking more about office politics and less about us. He bought a new watch, a sleek briefcase, switched from budget coffee to name-brand beans. One morning, as I tied my hair up before work, he looked at me and said, "Maybe you should try dressing more. Polished." I paused, hand frozen mid-twist. "What do you mean?" "Just something more professional. The wives at the company dinners, well, they carry themselves differently." I nodded, said nothing. The next day, I wore the same cardigan I'd worn 100 times before. He didn't say a word, but the silence weighed heavier than any insult. He used to love me for my simplicity. Now it was becoming a problem to solve, a flaw to fix. At the company holiday party, I wore a navy dress I'd found on clearance. Simple, neat, modest. Derek barely looked at me, but he couldn't stop staring at his boss's wife, draped in silk, heels that cost more than our rent. Later that night, while I was reaching for a canapé, one of his coworkers leaned in and said, "You must be Naomi. So down to earth. It's kind of refreshing." I smiled politely, but something inside me curled. It wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder. In that room full of manicured nails and designer perfume, I was the outsider they tolerated. Not admired, observed. Derek laughed with the men, talked golf, property values, stock tips. I stood quietly by the bar, invisible in a dress that didn't belong. He used to hold my hand in public. That night, he didn't touch me once, and for the first time I felt poor standing next to him. Her name was Vanessa Cole, luxury real estate agent. Blonde, polished, always camera-ready. She drove a white Mercedes, had perfect nails, and smiled like she was selling something, even when she wasn't. Derek met her through a networking brunch. At least, that's what he told me. Suddenly, he was going to more meetings, staying late, missing dinner. She showed up in his social feed, posing at rooftop listings, champagne in hand. I clicked on one video. She called herself a lifestyle curator. Her voice was smooth. Her heels louder than mine had ever been. She was everything I wasn't. White, loud, expensive, the kind of woman Derek's colleagues would be proud to stand beside. When I asked who she was, he said, "Just someone helping me find a new property investment." He didn't know I'd already bought 2 buildings on that same street, but I let him talk. He was still selling the fantasy. He started answering his phone in the hallway, said it was work stuff I wouldn't understand. His scent changed. New cologne I didn't buy. He wore button-downs I'd never seen before, but every time suspicion crept in, I pushed it down. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe I was imagining it. We'd been together for years. People change, right? He still said "love you" before bed, still kissed my forehead some mornings, still asked if I wanted him to pick up dinner on the way home. So I told myself stories, ones where nothing was wrong, where men just needed space, where wives didn't ruin marriages by overthinking. But deep down, I felt the shift, and I think part of me already knew. Have you ever ignored a truth just to protect a lie? Let me know in the comments. I know I'm not the only one. He started coming home with things we couldn't afford. A Mont Blanc pen, Italian loafers, a watch that shimmered like rent money. I raised an eyebrow once. He smiled and said, "It's a bonus. They're rewarding top performers." Then he winked. "You like it?" I nodded slowly, but something didn't sit right. We weren't that kind of couple. We celebrated promotions with takeout, not $1,000 leather. The next week, I found a cufflink in the dryer, monogrammed. Not his initials. When I asked, he shrugged. Must have mixed up with the coworkers at the gym. Everything had an explanation, just enough logic to cover the gaps. But the details didn't match the life we were living, and deep down, I was running out of ways to explain them away. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Derek had left a stack of unopened mail on the counter. I started sorting through it, thinking it was just bills. One envelope was half torn. A credit card statement slipped out. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just trying to clean, but the numbers stopped me cold. Dinner for 2 at a rooftop steakhouse we'd never been. A midweek hotel stay labeled romance package. A jewelry store I'd never stepped into. The charges weren't small, and they weren't random. One name kept appearing on the receipts. Sterling Luxury Real Estate. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat down, laid the papers flat, and read every line twice. It was all there, neatly itemized, time-stamped, real. And suddenly, denial wasn't an option anymore. I didn't confront him. I didn't throw the receipts in his face or demand answers. I called a number I'd saved years ago but never thought I'd use. A private investigator. Quiet. Discreet. I emailed the credit card statement. Gave him a name. Vanessa Cole. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Give me a week." Every morning, I packed Derek's lunch like nothing had changed. Every evening, I kissed his cheek and smiled. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was gathering. There's a moment when heartbreak turns into clarity, when tears dry and your hands start to move. That was the moment I stopped waiting to be respected and started preparing to be remembered. The email came exactly 7 days later. Subject line, "Findings attached." I opened the folder and saw them. Derek and Vanessa, walking hand in hand into a boutique jewelry store, her laugh wide, his hand on the small of her back. In one shot, he held a ring box. In another, he slipped a diamond onto her finger, like a rehearsal. They looked happy, comfortable, like they'd done this before. There were photos outside restaurants I'd never heard of. A weekend trip to a vineyard 2 states away. Him brushing hair from her face, her fixing his tie like she'd done it 100 times. I stared at those images until my eyes burned. It wasn't just betrayal, it was performance. Intimate, rehearsed, real. And in every frame, I was the one erased. The house was silent. No TV, no music, just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking wall clock. I sat at the kitchen table in my robe. The manila envelope lay open beside a cold cup of tea. Photos spread across the wood like scattered truths. Faces frozen in lies I never asked to witness. The front door opened. Keys hit the counter. Derek walked in, loosened his tie, glanced at me. He paused. "Why are you up?" I didn't answer, just looked at him, and he saw the photos. His jaw tensed. He didn't ask how I got them, didn't even flinch. He sat down across from me, the space between us thick with something ugly. "I guess we're doing this now," he muttered. No yelling, no tears, just 2 people sitting in a quiet room where the truth was louder than anything either of us could say. He didn't deny it, didn't say, "It's not what it looks like," didn't apologize. Instead, he leaned back, eyes cold. "You want the truth?" he said. "I'm embarrassed by you, Naomi." My breath caught. He kept going. "I'm tired of pretending we're something we're not. I can't keep making excuses to my colleagues, why my wife wears clearance rack clothes, why we don't drive a decent car, why we don't belong to any clubs." He laughed, bitter. "You've got no ambition, no class. You're comfortable being small." I sat still. His words weren't loud, but they landed like fists. "I've met someone who gets it. She understands success. She looks the part. She makes me feel like a man who's going somewhere." And just like that, I became an inconvenience to the image he wanted to build. I didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't ask why. I let his words sit in the air like smoke. Then I stood up, slow, steady. "So, you need someone else to feel successful?" I said quietly. He looked surprised. "You deserve someone who fits your new lifestyle," I continued. "Someone who looks good in your filtered world." He opened his mouth, maybe to defend himself, maybe to wound me again. But I didn't wait. I turned, walked toward the bedroom. He called after me. "Where are you going?" I didn't stop. "Packing your things," I said. "You've made your choice. I'm just giving you room to live in it." No anger, no drama, just calm and clarity. The kind that only comes when a woman finally sees the man in front of her for who he really is. The next morning, he packed fast. Suits, shoes, cologne, everything he thought mattered. Left behind the mugs we bought together, the blanket we argued over at IKEA. He moved with pride, like a man trading up. At the door, he paused, rolled down his suitcase, looked me dead in the eye. "Veronica has a penthouse, drives a Mercedes. What do you have, Naomi?" He waited for the sting to land. "For real," he added, "you're nothing without me. You'll see that soon enough." I didn't flinch, just gave a soft smile, looked past him, out the window. Birds were moving across the power lines. The sky was clean, wide. He huffed, rolled his bags out, and didn't look back. And me? I didn't shed a single tear, because for the first time in years, I felt free. I waited until I heard his car turn the corner, then I walked to the back of the closet, reached behind the shoeboxes and pulled out my real phone, the one Derek never saw. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one he'd called cheap, and I dialed. "Patricia, it's me." There was a pause. Then, breathless, "Naomi, are you okay?" I smiled. Calm, steady. "Clear my week. I want board meetings rescheduled. All 3 companies." Another pause. You're coming back? I looked around our quiet little apartment, the space where I'd shrunk myself small. Yes, I said. And tell Dominique to prepare a full wardrobe pull. No more cardigans. It's time. I stood up, taller than I had in years. I'm done pretending. And just like that, Naomi Brooks was no longer invisible. 3 days later, I walked into my real office. Not the nonprofit's basement corner, but the glass tower downtown, 15th floor, my name on the door. Naomi Brooks, principal investor. My team stood when I entered. Some hadn't seen me in months. Others only knew me by email. Welcome back, my CFO whispered, eyes wide. I met with my stylist that afternoon. We burned the soft cardigans and dusty flats. In came tailored suits, bold colors, structured heels. Confidence stitched into every seam. I wasn't hiding behind humble anymore. At my private investment firm, we reviewed 3 deals: tech, energy, and healthcare. I signed 7 figures before lunch. That night, I toasted myself with wine poured from a bottle that cost more than Derek's entire watch collection. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. The real me had always been here. Now, the world would see her too. Vanessa's penthouse wasn't what it seemed. The marble was real, but the payments were late. The Tesla? Leased? 2 months behind. Derek moved in thinking he'd upgraded, but instead of champagne toasts, he got credit card bills and side eyes. They started fighting about little things: groceries, Wi-Fi speed, who used the last of the almond milk. One night, neighbors heard her yell, "You said your ex was the broke one, so where's the money now?" He blamed stress. She blamed him. Neither had a plan, just the performance of success. Derek tried calling in favors, even asked for a loan from a friend he once mocked. The mask was slipping, and behind it, just 2 people clinging to a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Ever watched someone trade real love for surface glitter, only to choke on the shine? Tell me in the comments, what do you think hurts more? Losing money, or losing someone who truly had your back? 3 weeks after he left, Derek filed for divorce. The documents came through his lawyer, wrapped in smug legalese. He checked the box for division of marital assets. He wanted the couch, the car, and whatever savings she has left. He thought I was scraping by, thought I'd begged to keep the apartment. Word was Vanessa had been pressuring him, told him to secure what he was owed. I could almost hear their plan: bleed the sweet, simple ex-wife dry. Then ride into the sunset on her crumbs. But he didn't know about the private trusts, didn't know the house he envied belonged to me, didn't know the car Vanessa drooled over sat in my second garage. He thought he was hunting a rabbit, didn't realize he was standing in front of a lioness. The real story was just beginning. My attorney didn't say much, just slid the thick envelope across the table to Derek's lawyer. Inside, a full financial disclosure: assets, holdings, trust funds, 3 LLCs, 2 overseas accounts, and a line that read, net worth $12.4 million. The room went still. His lawyer blinked twice. Is this accurate? My attorney didn't flinch. Every number. Across the table, Derek looked up, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. He said nothing. He couldn't. This wasn't the woman who clipped coupons and brought home thrift store mugs. This was the founder, the owner, the empire. He'd left a woman he thought had nothing, only to discover she was everything. His silence was louder than any apology. And I sat there calm, composed, legs crossed, watching his fantasy collapse on itself. The richest thing in the room that day was the truth. That night, my phone lit up. Derek. I let it ring twice before answering. Didn't say a word. His voice cracked. Naomi, is this real? You've had all this whole time? I let the silence stretch, let him feel it. Then I spoke, calm, clear, sharp. Now you know what I have, he stammered. But why didn't you? I cut him off. Because you never asked who I really was. You only ever looked for what I lacked. Click, no screaming, no revenge speech, just precision. He called again. I didn't answer. Sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is let a man hear himself echo in a dial tone and know the door is closed, for good. The envelope was thin. No embossing, no wax seal, just flimsy cardstock with a pixelated gold trim. It was their wedding invitation. Derek and Vanessa. In bold script that tried too hard. The venue was a budget banquet hall on the edge of town. Cash bar. Dress code, semi-formal. A gift registry link was printed at the bottom, twice. The list? Flatware, towels, a blender, gift cards. All from high-end stores they clearly couldn't afford. Vanessa's name was spelled with 2 S's, and a note added, "We kindly request generous gifts to help us start our journey together." I set it down, almost amused. They weren't building a life. They were fishing for handouts, wearing rented pride. And for 2 people who claimed to be upgrading, they sure were hoping the guests would pay for the illusion. The valet froze when the Rolls-Royce pulled up. Not a rental, not borrowed. Mine. I stepped out slowly. Heels kissed the pavement. Custom couture, deep emerald silk, hugging every inch like it was stitched from confidence. Diamonds at my wrist. A clutch that cost more than their venue's rent. The air shifted. Guests turned. Whispers rose like smoke. That's her. That's Naomi. The nobody in Derek's story. The wife he left behind. Inside, heads tilted, eyes lingered. Women nudged each other. Men adjusted their ties. I didn't flinch, didn't smile, just walked. Calm, slow, every step a reminder. I wasn't there to reclaim him. I was there to reclaim the narrative. And the room, without a word, handed me back the crown I never should have had to drop. The mic felt light in my hand. The room dimmed as I stood beneath the fairy lights strung over their rented reception hall. Faces turned toward me. Derek's jaw clenched. Vanessa gripped her champagne flute too tight. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't need to. My voice was steady, measured, but sharp. I want to thank Derek and Vanessa for reminding me what real success looks like. A few polite chuckles. Silence followed. 3 years ago, I was told I wasn't enough. Not polished enough, not stylish enough, not worthy of pride. I glanced toward Derek. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Well, today, the woman no one was proud of just funded full-ride scholarships for 300 women of color, future scientists, lawyers, founders. Murmurs rippled. Someone gasped. I smiled gently. Turns out, small doesn't mean powerless. Quiet doesn't mean weak. And nobody can mean legacy. I set the mic down and left a silence too big for either of them to fill. I didn't stay for cake, didn't wait for the first dance or the awkward bouquet toss. I walked out while their guests were still whispering, while Derek stood frozen and Vanessa pretended not to notice. Outside, the night was cool. My driver opened the door. I stepped in, the hem of my gown catching the last of the light. No cheers, no applause, just the quiet sound of closure. As the Rolls-Royce pulled away, I looked back once, not with regret, not with bitterness, but with the calm of someone who no longer has to prove anything. I didn't come to destroy them. I came to remember who I was, because revenge doesn't always need noise. Sometimes it just needs you to live like you never needed them in the first place. 2 years later, I wasn't just healed. I was in love, not the desperate, prove-your-worth kind, but the steady, open kind. He knew my past, my worth, my silence, my empire, and he never once felt threatened by any of it. We laughed often, slept well, planned quietly, lived honestly, and with every healed part of me, I gave back. I launched the New Light Fund, grants for women rebuilding after betrayal. Not just money, but mentorship, legal support, career training. We helped single mothers get homes. We gave women with broken bank accounts a second shot, because I knew what it felt like to be told you were nothing. To believe, even for a second, that they might be right, but they're not. The truth? A broken heart can become a bridge, if you dare to walk across it. They once called me nobody, just a wife, just background noise, just lucky to be loved. But I learned something powerful. You don't need the world to see you. You just need to see yourself. I am a builder, a leader, a woman who turned betrayal into fuel, who rose not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. I don't need to be someone's pride. I am my own. And if you've ever been underestimated, talked down to, overlooked, told you weren't enough, let this be your reminder. Your worth doesn't shrink because someone else can't see it. You are not nobody. You are everything when you choose to be. Comment "Me Too" if you've ever felt unseen. Like, share, and subscribe for more true stories that remind you of your power. The world may forget your name, but you never forget who you are.